And now it's too late with Alan Mosley.
Welcome back to the show, everyone, for episode 109 of It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Producer Blake,
Yes.
You had an adventure coming into work today.
Yeah, I got a flat tire.
Flat tire or flat tires?
Turns out it was just one flat tire, but it felt like five.
Wow. Did you hit something, or is it just flat?
No, I'm cheap, and I need to learn to replace my tires on a more regular basis.
Well, I mean, we would have money to replace our tires on a more regular basis if we could, stay open for work without...
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Alan.
Yeah, that does sound like a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what else sounds like a good idea?
What else sounds like a good idea?
Is people should be watching these episodes as they premiere live on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/funnybroke. That's where you can see the episodes every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time.
Yep.
And consider supporting the show by becoming a member of our Patreon.
Please do. We need tires.
Yeah, exactly. People should do that because we need money for tires.
Right.
Yeah.
It really sucks when you don't have tires.
And Impossible Chicken, but I have an update on that.
Okay.
So I looked this up. Apparently there was only a few test markets for the Impossible Chicken, and I think the test is up, and there hasn't been they haven't said anything since then. So I can't go to the KFC here in town and get it, I don't think.
That's probably because it was nasty, man.
It may have been, but I got to tell you, I was a little bit excited to bring it. I wasn't even going to tell you. I was just going to bring it in one day and be like, Blake, look what I got.
Dude,
guess what we're going to do today? I feel cheated a little bit.
Yeah,
I was going to make a whole episode out of just watching you eat fake chicken.
Oh.
I'll tell you who else had an adventure this morning. Our friend of the show, she's been on 3 or 4 times, Suzanne Sherman of the Wasatch Report.
What happened?
She got banned from Facebook.
Oh, really?
Not temporarily zucked. Her account was disabled.
Zapped.
Her account was disabled. I actually have the image. Go ahead and pull up that image right there, Blake. So she had posted, it's an ISIS flag with the thin blue line through it.
Ooh.
I know, right? It's pretty spicy. And a bunch of snowflakes reported her for that, and it got her account disabled. And you know what? I got to tell you.
What? Suzanne,
if you're listening, which I know she is, by the way. Suzanne, you crossed the line. That was, we have to remember, there's a time and place for everything, but you definitely can take a step too far. And I gotta be honest with you, that image definitely is kind of offensive. It's not kind of offensive, it's definitely offensive.
Okay.
Because ISIS doesn't want to be associated with cops.
Ooh. I get it.
I know you did. You ruined the joke, Blake. Good God. You know what? Just for the audience at home, Blake enunciates how you're supposed to feel because he thinks the audience is stupid.
No.
He told me that before we started airing. He said, our viewers are retarded.
That's not true. It's because I don't have a fake audience track I can hit over here to make me feel more real.
I said 2 months ago we should have that.
Yeah. I've been working on it.
When I say out loud, we should have this. What I'm actually saying is, Blake, you should figure out a way to do this. You are the best producer in late night.
Yeah, but I can't afford tires. How am I supposed to afford a clap track machine?
It's because it's not a machine. You just build it into OBS. You're making excuses when those excuses are not allowed here, my friend. Everyone knows you just have to program it in. You're just lazy.
Yeah, we just need to find Michael Winslow. Where is that guy?
Given birth to goat triplets and all that kind of crap, and that's why you ain't got time for anything.
No, I don't.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say the police academy guy?
Yeah, remember him?
Yeah, I do remember him.
Yeah, that guy was awesome.
That's quite a reference to pull out of the hat, though.
Yeah, I know.
So you have seen the Police Academy movies?
All of them. Big fan of that series. Watched every one of them. They're still funny to this day.
Why am I not surprised by that? Why am I not surprised that you haven't seen The Godfather, which is one of the greatest movies of all time, but you've seen every police... There's like 9 of them or something ridiculous, and you think that they're great. Why am I not surprised by this?
I have no excuse.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm giving you such a hard time. I really... I don't know. I just feel like it, I guess.
It's the orange shirt, I guess.
It is the orange shirt, but you're in Tennessee, you're like UT and all that. So
no, I'm just trying to not get shot.
Well, That's you got to wait until later in the show. And by the way, we haven't even gotten to the next segment yet, but we've got some viewer mail questions today that are referencing some content later in the show. But you got to be careful about that, because here's the thing. When I did the whole redesign of the whole show, the new name, new set, new everything.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to do is I really wanted to make the show kind of more light-spirited and funny and entertaining and all that. Because, I mean, nobody cares. Nobody cares about articles that we write. Nobody cares about any of the issues. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Right.
So I just figure we'll just call people retarded and show memes, and we'll get more clicks. Which, by the way, totally works.
Totally
by the way,
works.
That's the sad thing.
It really is.
But the last couple of weeks we've had some serious topics on the show. But in my defense, because I don't know why I feel like the need to defend myself, but in my defense, if it seems like we're talking about like police brutality every week, it's because they keep doing it.
I know.
It's because it keeps happening. If we could go a whole week without them murdering somebody in broad daylight, then we wouldn't talk about it on the show.
I know.
Then we could have the sad thing is we actually had a couple of episodes planned where we were going to talk about some pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about a couple of series on Netflix.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the Tiger King.
Yeah.
We're going to have a couple of guests on to share our joy in that experience.
Yeah.
And we've delayed those episodes. I mean, in some ways, it's because they're evergreen, because I mean that series isn't going anywhere.
No.
But in other ways, it's because I get up around the early part of the week. I'm like, okay, it's time to put the show together. And I'm like, I'm gonna pull up my browser here, because that's how I type, And I'm gonna see what's going on in the world, and it's just look who they murdered in the street today.
Oh,
and I'm like,
killed today.
That's
yeah. I know.
I still will stand by the way, something that I said towards the end of last week's episode, and that's going to apply to this week, is that I'm really bothered by all the people who, I guess it's selective outrage is the thing. One of the things that bothers me the most is selective outrage. One of my biggest pet peeves. If there's a list of injustices, and injustice is injustice, it's wrong. It's something reprehensible. If this injustice happened to this person who meets this demographic, and the same injustice happened to this other person from this other demographic, you should be equally outraged by both.
Absolutely.
If you have a shred of consistency in principle, then you'll say, well, wrong is wrong no matter who was affected.
Exactly.
And I like that. Did you hear that? Did you hear that little bell? It's almost like that was planned. Like it was like, ding, Alan said something important.
Yeah.
But it amazes me how many people you see. Like I don't use Twitter that much, but I look at Twitter to kind of see the pulse, to see what people are talking about. And when I say people, I mean people on Twitter. And let's, by the way, people on Twitter and people are two different things.
I believe you.
But people on Twitter are just raging about one topic, and they will just ghost another one, even though they're the same. Like they're the same type of victim, or they're the same type of crime or whatever. And I'm like, this is why the bad guys win right here. The bad guys win because of people getting selective outrage over something that maybe it hits closer to home. Maybe it does. I don't know. But if you can't at least take a step back and reflect and say that, okay, these different situations. So like last week we had Duncan Lemp and Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
So both of those people were murdered by the police. Both of them were victims of a no-knock raid, a home invasion. One was a white man, one was a black woman. You should be equally outraged by both. And if you're not, then you need to seriously reflect on who you actually think the bad guys are and who you think the good guys are.
Right.
Because the bad guys are really winning that one. They really are. Commercial break?
Yes, sir.
Let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. You know, earlier in the monologue, I actually spaced a little bit what our Patreon is. Like, I told people to go subscribe to our Patreon, but then I couldn't remember what the URL is.
Okay.
It's my name.
Yeah.
It's patreon.com/Alan Mosley. We actually have a commercial that plays that says it, and I didn't remember. So the moral of the story is that I'm actually worse at my job than Blake is at his, and I put him down to raise me up.
Hey, whatever you need, man.
That's what it
I'm
is.
here to comfort you, brother.
Hey, Blake.
Yeah.
What time is it?
It's time for...
That's pretty hardcore.
Meme of the week.
What government promises? Those are some tasty looking burgers right there. I know, I could go for those.
Wow.
But then what?
Oh.
What it delivers. I gotta tell you, that's... Now, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's reprehensible. But it's still a sandwich, damn it. It's still a sandwich.
My God.
It's still a sandwich. It just is.
But the hot dog is doing something.
You know what?
It's doing something wrong, man.
You know how my OCD brain works. You know
Yeah.
what I hated most about that last image?
What?
Is that they spilt ketchup on the table.
Okay.
Like that was where my eye was drawn to. Is they got ketchup on the table. I don't know. It's just how my brain works. Okay,
I will never
it's
look
just
at a
how
hot
it is.
dog
I
quite
can't.
the same again.
I can't change at this point.
Yeah.
I'm too old.
It's disturbing.
It is. It is just. This whole show's disturbing.
I will never be able to unsee that, brother.
Well, I'm sorry.
And from now on, I'm eating my hot dogs that way.
I'm gonna make you one. I'm gonna make you one exact. Actually, I don't know how you go about. It seems like it would be more work to do it like that. Actually, that actually pretty much is government in a nutshell.
Yeah,
they would go way
yeah.
out of their way to do something incorrect. That's right.
So the meme is genius.
Let's answer the viewer mail. I feel like the only reason people tune into this show at this point is to see what graphics we've made, to listen to the bumper music because it's pretty funky,
Yeah.
and to hear us answer their viewer mail question. I'm pretty sure after we're not on TV, so we don't have like the TV ratings thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that after we finish the segment with the viewer mail, our audience just just goes.
Now they're going to talk about serious stuff.
But in our defense though, that's real of like real late night TV though, like because it's late at night, so like the first 30 minutes of whatever they'll watch it, and then the ratings dive after like 11 o'clock. So that's a thing that does happen. Yeah, I just I wish that we were the late show. Like I wish we were the show that was on after the Tonight Show. Yeah. Because it's great. Because on the one hand, they'll in a lot of ways they'll let you just kind of do whatever you want because no one cares, and two, you don't have the pressure of an audience because nobody's watching anymore. Right. Everyone went to bed.
Exactly.
We feel no pressure on this show because nobody's watching.
Exactly.
Speaking of that, before we do the viewer mail,
okay.
If you're watching this show, you better hit that like button down there, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We're on Twitch now, by the way. We stream the episodes on Twitch. Good. You better like the videos. You better share them. You better hit that share button and say and comment, golly gee, Alan, that episode sure was swell. You know what? I'm gonna get like an Amazon gift card to the first person who actually writes that comment word.
They're gonna hold you to that, man.
Well, I know, but what are they? I'll just.
You can't afford tires.
But I'm serious. You got to like and share the show because if we've learned anything, Suzanne, the media giants control the narrative, and you can beat that by helping us spread the show. Yeah, it's amazing how you can have thousands of followers or likes or whatever. Yeah, and then you can make a new piece of content and it'll get 50. Yeah, and you're like, what? How could that be? It's because people, and you know who you are not liking and sharing the show. So
it's not hard. Just hit the little button.
With that said, it's time for the viewer mail. Andrew from Coatesville, Pennsylvania writes, Dear Alan and Blake, if you don't pay your exorcist, do you get repossessed? Now, Andrew, we talked about this the last couple of weeks. This is for serious viewer mail questions and not your puns.
Hey. Hey, answer it.
No, it doesn't deserve an answer. Puns don't get answers. Puns. Actually, forget everything I said a minute ago. Do not share this episode. It's garbage because Andrew's sending us his puns.
Wow.
Suzanne from Colville, Utah writes, Suzanne. I don't know if we're allowed to read this because Suzanne's banned.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are we allowed to read banned content?
It's a different Susan.
Suzanne. Who's Susan?
We'll call it Susan. We'll just call her Susan.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Susan.
What's this? You know, you've never watched this show before, have you? Just so that you guys at home know this, Blake doesn't watch this show.
I don't watch this
like,
show.
we make this and then we give
it
it to you.
Yeah.
It's not for us anymore.
Yeah, I don't watch it.
Yeah. Suzanne from Colville, Utah writes, Dear Alan and Blake, is it more offensive to kneel for the national hymn or on a man's neck until he dies? Suzanne is really upset.
Ooh,
Suzanne is really
up.
upset about everything going on. So Suzanne, wait till the next segment.
Exactly.
Ryan from Nashville, Tennessee. Oh, from Nashville.
Yay.
Dear Alan and Blake, has Elon Musk truly been red-pilled or is he just playing to a demographic? He absolutely has not been red-pilled. Like, I would love nothing more than for someone like an Elon Musk to say, you know what, government is a net detriment, not a net benefit. So I'm going to start making decisions based on getting around government, not working with it. Yeah. The problem is that, boy, you want to talk about someone who's got his mouth on the spigot. Elon Musk has taken so many handouts from government that he has no credibility. Like, I would love to wake up and to be able to say that people can really change and that he can turn over a new leaf and all that. And yes, it is true that he kind of stood up to the Department of Health in California and said, we're going back to work. And they did, and I mean, everything seems to be going okay. So it's fair to give credit where credit is due on that.
Okay.
But he's totally not been. He's like, if they offered him a subsidy tomorrow, he'd take it gleefully.
Yeah. He's a good businessman.
Well, I mean, he's a mediocre businessman who sold a lot of bill of goods to government to get a lot of money.
Hey, you have to admit one thing though.
What?
He'd make one hell of a Batman.
No, he wouldn't. He'd make a crappy Batman.
He's got so much money, he could just build anything.
But Batman is also like a crime-solving genius martial artist.
Okay, scratch that. Iron Man.
Okay. I'll give you that, but you know I'm not a big Iron Man fan. So all the Iron Man people out there,
all right.
Captain, I'm on Team Cap. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Celeste from Niagara Falls, New York writes, Dear Alan and Blake, is a fruit roll-up jerky? Celeste is trying to one-up us here by hitting us with one of the complicated food questions.
Man, I don't have an answer.
Well, I do have an answer because I am the expert at this. No one's going to pull one over me. So a fruit roll-up is not jerky because jerky has to be a meat product. Okay. Period. End of story. If anyone writes in the comments or says, oh, here's a link to something that they call jerky, but it's made of something else, it's not jerky. So they're wrong. Jerky has to be a meat product. So you can have turkey jerky. You can have different kinds of jerky that are different kinds of meat.
Yeah, as long as they're meat.
But a fruit roll-up, which is not fruit either, by the way. It's just congealed sugar. Yeah. It's not.
But does that make it a jelly?
You're jelly.
Thanks.
Jeff from Gillette, Pennsylvania writes, Dear Alan and Blake, how many bootlickers need to complain to get Suzanne Sherman kicked off of Facebook? Apparently that many. However many that was, that's how many. Yeah. So it's kind of like we're back to how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll Center. So what was that? What was it? 638?
Yeah, or something like that.
Okay, so the answer, Jeff, is 638.
Sure. Okay.
There you go.
That'll work.
And finally, Sherry from Knoxville, Tennessee. Oh, from Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know who Sherry is too, but you know.
Yeah.
Shh. Sherry from Knoxville, Tennessee writes, Dear Alan and Blake, who would be your dream cast for a Cowboy Bebop show? Did you know that they're making a Cowboy Bebop live action on Netflix?
That's epic.
Had you heard about that?
No, I haven't. This is the first time I've heard it.
Okay.
Man, I hope they pick good actors.
This is god-awful.
Oh,
it's
really?
a perfect show as it is. It doesn't need to be remade as anything else.
Just answer me this one question. Is it the Japanese that are making it, or is it the Americans that are making it?
Well, I mean, they're taking the original creator of the show, who's like the executive producer on this show, but it's going to be a live action show on Netflix that's going to be done in English. But the point being is that actually it's on hiatus right now because one of the actors got injured. And so, they're waiting for him to get healed up, and then they're going to go back to shooting the show. Okay. I probably won't watch it. I have zero expectations for it because Like, why do you have to remake it? That's like, I mean, it's really. First of all, by the way, Cowboy Bebop is one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. Not top 5 animated shows. Top 5 shows. Like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, Cowboy Bebop. I'm serious.
Wow.
But it's like, this is the same thing as them saying, "Oh, we're gonna do a modern remake of The Godfather." No, just you have The Godfather. You have it. You don't need another one, and so you don't need another Cowboy Bebop. It stands as its own work of art. It doesn't need to be remade. So my dream cast is them to just scrap the whole thing, just for them to decide to just end shooting and not do the show. That's my dream, actually.
There you go.
Other than that, I think I should be Spike because I got the hair. I mean, that's it. That's all I have, and I feel like that should be enough.
Am I too old to play Ed?
Are you too old to play a little girl? I tell you what, you're treading on some thin ice here all of a sudden. With that, I think we better take a commercial break before you get us in trouble. Let's go ahead and take a commercial break. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Email us at alan@funnybroke.com. Did it sound like someone was clearing their throat during the bumper?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Are you all right? Are you good?
I don't know why, but you know the funny thing is every time we get to this part of the show, I get like all this stuff in my throat. Maybe it's because we're fixing to get serious.
I mean, we are fixing to get serious, but you've ruined. I was all mentally, I was psychologically prepared to be serious, and now all I can think of is got a lot of stuff in your throat, huh, Blake?
Just trying to throw you off your game. That's my job.
You're used to having a lot of stuff in your throat, aren't you?
Hey.
Anyway, all right, let's put on our big boy hats. Here we go. So again, if you're a viewer out there and you started watching this show more recently and you thought, "Man, I thought this show was kind of like a lighthearted program, and now they're covering all this serious like police brutality stuff." If they'd quit brutalizing people, we'd quit covering it.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a new week. And now we're going to talk about the murder of George Floyd. Let's go ahead and pull up the articles. This is I'm going to be referencing the one from Reason Magazine. Zuri Davis. A Minnesota man dies after video shows cop pressing knee to his neck for nearly 8 minutes. Minnesota police, I'm going to bring that back up.
Okay.
I didn't tell you to kill that.
Okay,
Minnesota police said George Floyd died after he, quote, appeared to be suffering medical distress. You don't say. He appeared to be suffering medical distress, Blake.
Yeah.
I wonder if Breonna Taylor appeared to be suffering medical distress when she was shot 8 times.
Good question. Very
I don't know.
question. Mm-hmm.
A Minnesota man named George Floyd died Monday after a bystander video showed him begging for air while a police officer held a knee to his neck. According to a statement by the Minnesota Police Department, officers responded to reports of a forgery. How do you report a forgery? Do you get something and you feel like it's been forged, so you call the cops and say, "I'm here with a forger. There's a guy forging here." That makes him sound like a blacksmith.
I don't know.
He's forging. I don't know. That just seems like a. And we're advised that the suspect appeared to be under the influence. Of course. Because that's how you justify murder in broad daylight is, but maybe he had a little, Floyd was sitting in his car when officers arrived on the scene and commanded him to exit his vehicle. The statement says that Floyd got out of his car, physically resisted the officers, and was handcuffed. It was then that officers noticed that Floyd, quote, appeared to be suffering medical distress. The statement does not provide further detail. So to set this up really quick, so they show up on the scene, they get him out of his car. They claim he resisted arrest, but whether he did or he didn't, he's at this point he's on the ground in handcuffs.
Right.
There's no more. He's been apprehended at this point. But a bystander captured 10 minutes of interaction on video. When the video starts, an MPD officer is seen pressing his knee into the side of Floyd's neck while he's on the ground and handcuffed. Floyd is heard pleading with the officer, repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe, my neck hurts, and they're gonna kill me." He continues to move his head, presumably in an attempt to breathe. "You got him down, man. Let him breathe at least," a bystander is heard saying in the background. Another comments that his nose is bleeding. Others ask how long the officers plan to keep him on the ground and question the decision to keep him pinned by the neck. At one point, another officer... Oh, I lost my place there. Another officer on the scene responds to the criticism, saying that they tried to put Floyd in the police vehicle for 10 minutes. About 4 minutes in, Floyd stops moving. That's when the officer whose knee is pressed to Floyd's neck pulls out what bystanders identify as mace, and the other officer on the scene moves to get in between the officer and the crowd. So they're starting to sense that maybe this crowd might not approve of what's going on.
You think?
They shouldn't approve.
Yeah.
The bystanders continue to tell the officers that Floyd isn't responding and urge them to check his pulse. The officer continues to keep his knee pressed to Floyd's neck until emergency medical services arrive, which was called by the officers. Floyd was transported to Hennepin County Medical Center. He died shortly thereafter.
Nice.
NPD confirmed that neither Floyd nor the officers used weapons in the incident, that the officers were not injured, that the officers involved were wearing body cameras, which were active at the time. NPD has requested that the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension investigate the incident. The FBI will also be part of the investigation. Oh boy, I feel better now. We've investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. Go ahead and get ready for that one.
Oh, yeah.
Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who is involved with cases like Ahmaud Arbery's and Breonna Taylor's, announced on Twitter that he is representing Floyd's family in court. This abusive, excessive, and inhumane use of force cost the life of a man who was being detained by the police for questioning about a nonviolent charge, Crump said in a statement.
Unreal.
So I'm going to cover some of the common statements and objections you hear. So you see these trotted out every single time. So first of all, we have a video of the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
This is not he said, she said business. We watch it happen. And by the way, we're not playing the video on the show. It's easy to find. It's disturbing. I mean, if you want to see a man die, because that's exactly what you're going to see. You hear people that'll say, well, we don't know what happened before the video started. That doesn't matter. He was face down on the ground in handcuffs.
Restrained.
He was murdered.
That's right.
He was murdered. It doesn't matter what happened before the video started. He was murdered.
That is correct.
I don't believe the BS about resisting arrest, but even if he did, that doesn't matter. Right. I don't really care about the forgery. A lot of people will ask, well, what did he do? Which, by the way, that's such a presumption of guilt, by the way. When you say, what did he do? That's a presumption of guilt. You're supposed to be presumed innocent. He was alleged to have been committing some type of a forgery, but I didn't realize forgery was something you could get a warrant for execution on. We discussed this last week. There's no there's search warrants, there's arrest warrants. There's no such thing as an execution warrant.
Right.
The police don't just get to go find someone, accuse them of a crime, and end their life right there in broad daylight. That is not allowed. There's no such thing.
We hope.
So it doesn't matter what he's doing. It doesn't even matter if we had video of him committing a crime. It doesn't matter if he jaywalked. It wouldn't even matter if he was running around punching people in the face. From the moment that he was subdued and apprehended, he hasn't seen his day in court. He hasn't been found guilty of anything. They murdered him. They murdered him. They murdered George Floyd on the street in broad daylight in front of a group of people. And we have the video of them doing it. This is no cover-up. Now, another thing, what are some of the other things that people say all the time? Is they'll say that, well, you know, and I've already seen this too, by the way. People say, well, you know, it's hard to be a police officer. You know, they're trained in all these different methods, and you know, he's a large guy, and it's supposedly he resisted arrest, and they're trying to use all these different techniques to subdue and apprehend and yada yada yada. They murdered him. Period. Full stop. And I gotta tell you, you know, and this is gonna make me like, I know the cuck-servatives out there are gonna accuse me of being a lefty for saying this, but I gotta tell you, if you go watch that video, go ahead and watch it. If you go watch that video And the first thing you think of is, what did he do? If you go watch that video and the first thing you think of is, it's hard being a police officer. If you go watch that video and the first thing you think of is, we don't have all the facts. We didn't see what happened before the video started. At the very least, you don't value that man's life in his being the way you do others, which means you're probably a racist POS.
That's right.
And what's even worse, and I mean this, what's way worse than being a racist is being a statist. If when something like this happens, whether it's Breonna Taylor or Duncan Lemp or Ahmaud Arbery or George Floyd, if the first thing you do is immediately start jumping to the defense of the thin blue line, you're a statist. And that's way worse than being a racist. It's way worse. I did want to give the update. They had the update in the article that the officers that were involved in the altercation have been fired. But that's not good enough.
No.
They need to be in prison for murder.
Right.
That's what they need. Because it wasn't a botched apprehension. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. Mm-hmm. We talked about this last week as well. So Breonna Taylor was shot 8 times when she was not accused of anything, was not a suspect of anything, and the police conducted a no-knock raid on her home looking for someone who, A, was not there, had never been there, and was already in custody elsewhere. You can, if you want to really give them the benefit of the doubt, you can say that was a tragic error. But a tragic error doesn't change the fact that they killed the woman.
Right.
And that makes them murderers, and they should go to prison for it. Now, I'll even give it to you. I'll even give it to you that it was a mistake, that they didn't show up to that address thinking to themselves, there's a woman here named Breonna Taylor and we're going to shoot her 8 times. I'll give you that. They still did it. If I made a mistake that resulted in the death of another person, I'm going to face some consequences.
Yeah.
And I should.
Yeah.
Because you've robbed them of the most valuable thing, which is their life. So I really would like to go a few weeks without having these.
Yeah.
But
nice.
I feel compelled to address it because it keeps happening. And there's a couple of last thoughts before we hit the commercial break. This is not a call to political action. You can't vote your way out of this one, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-mm. These people don't answer to you. They don't answer to anyone. What I genuinely, and I say this very carefully so that we don't get the Suzanne Sherman treatment, that group of bystanders should have put an end to it.
Yeah.
That group of bystanders should have freed George Floyd so that he could breathe and subdued the officers. I know that that's a big thing to say because you're opening up the Pandora's box of, well, to what lengths are you willing to go to put an end to that situation? And how are you going to deal with the potential fallout afterwards? I'm all for peaceful cooperation and voluntarism. But there are forces in this. I'm not a pacifist. And there are authorities in this, so-called self-described authorities in this world who do not answer to you, who don't care about you. And it doesn't matter who you voted for in the last election. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are. If you get the target on your back, they will come for you. And they feel that you will submit to their rule or you will die. Comply or die. George Floyd apparently he didn't comply hard enough, and so he died. And there will be no trial. We won't find George Floyd guilty or not guilty. He's dead now. Breonna Taylor, her family might have some semblance of justice be done. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not for her because she's dead. And I know some people might be put off by that statement, but I mean that. It's that I've always said that, like when I die, my funeral's not for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not there. I'm dead.
Yeah.
The funeral's for everyone else. Mm-hmm. Anything that comes of any of these cases, it's not for them. It's for those that have been left behind because they're dead. No rulings can possibly bring back George Floyd.
That's right. We
can only hope that those people, the people who committed this act, are not allowed to do it again. But I have to tell you, I'm afraid it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. And what's the worst about it? What's the worst about it is I can go out on the street right now, driving up and down the road, and see tons of cars with thin blue line stickers on the back. Because these people completely unironically support the police. Blue lives matter. Back the blue. I support the troops. I support the cops. Then you're guilty too. And I mean that.
Yeah.
All right, we're done with this. Let's take a commercial break so we can shake it out and move on. Commercial break. Like us on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/funnybroke. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Twitter at Alan M. Mosley. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/funnybroke. Literally right in the break, I yelled out to Blake, "Hey, you want to do a shorter show today?" And he was like, "Sure, I hate this show."
No,
I know. I'm just playing. Calm down. But after that last one, I don't want to do another segment. So we're gonna wrap up a little bit early. Yeah. I actually wanted to share. It's something that I had thought about. A couple of things that I had thought about over the last weekend or so. One of them being that you know how the superheroes always wear masks.
Yeah.
And like why they do, right? Like they're protecting their identity so that like during civilian life, so to speak, they're not harassed and the bad guys don't target their loved ones.
Sure.
And, that's why they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to do that in a lot of ways. Like those bystanders should have stopped those cops from doing what they're doing, but they really needed to be wearing masks to do that because if they're not, they'll come for them. Yeah. They'll bring their wrath at being upstaged and they'll come for you. And so like it's, and another thing I was thinking too, like in the George Floyd case is awful. And it's the more recent, and we never really covered Ahmaud Arbery on the show, and I don't think I will at this point, just to know that I can only do so many of these.
Right.
I gotta tell you, the Breonna Taylor one, I think, is the one that's kind of stuck with me the most here lately. Yeah. Just because she was 100% in the right, was in her own home, was attacked in her own home, was not accused of anything, yada yada yada. I was just thinking, like, what if that was Anna Kay? What if I came home one day and the police and the ambulance and stuff were there, and I come to find out that they had raided our home looking for Joe Bob.
Something.
Looking, like we live in a townhouse. Maybe they were looking for the previous tenant, who obviously is not there anymore, hasn't been for years, and I find out that she's been shot 8 times. She's dead. I would be very angry,
to say the least. Huh. But what could you do?
I would obviously be very sad. That goes without saying. But I've been somebody who's dealt with anger issues in my life, and I would be very angry about that.
I think so.
And I would want to hurt the people who hurt her, who hurt me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not saying that that's the right thing, but I'm saying it's a very natural feeling to want to hurt those who hurt you. And I know that there's cooler heads out there that might say, well, we don't want to perpetuate the circle of violence and yada yada yada. But there are people in this world who only respond to one thing, and that's force.
Yeah.
And I really I really hope that our listeners, because we get these questions sometimes, people say, well, like, what do you do in your personal life to resist, and what are ways that you try to get around different things? And I do emphasize to people, you've got to draw your line in the sand, and you've got to figure out your little ways to resist. Like, you've got to find your little ways to push back. But I don't know what any of us would do in that situation. I mean, what can you do? But they're evil. These people are evil. And it's such a shame that your neighbors are more likely than not the ones that are making excuses for them every time something like this happens.
Yeah.
I guess all we can hope for is that they run out of excuses. Because we're certainly not running out of cases.
No.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of It's Too Late with Alan Mosley, and we will see you next week.